good to go. Welcome to Fallout Podcast, episode 69, aka Have a Glass of Water and Run Round the Garden. It's usually a fall showdown, but today, for the third time, we've decided to brave the absolute dregs of the Falls catalogue. The things that didn't appear anywhere else, unofficial, things that should never have been recorded, and in fact, things that never were. Joined, as always, by Lord Sage Temple. How are you tonight, Ezra?
Squiffing.
You ready for this?
Oh, God. Yes, I was born ready for this.
All right. Alistair, how are you doing?
I'm all right, yeah. I'm a bit surprised at how strong my coffee is today, though.
Well, you might just need it by the time we're 17 songs into this playlist today.
We're all going to heaven.
Right. And we'll be joined possibly by Monsieur Beard and Tiny Tim Trois, throwing in their feelings on this. But yes, we are going to go to the last set of tracks, and that includes Jack the Ripper, Stepping Out, Sten Gun Rock, Dropout Boogie, Edie Blonde, Instrumental Outtake, 60s Whack, White Lines, Mr Bloe, and a whole bunch of others. Without further ado, why don't we have a listen to the tracks that got the least amount of love? This was Genie, the Eddie Cochran cover, You Don't Turn Me On, the most mythical of all fall tracks, that only less than a minute of exists in a very rough way. Oh, and look who's just waded out of the ocean. It's Mr. Pippington Beehard. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
You're just about to listen to the two songs that we that none of us gave any points to at all.
Yeah, man. Faster Pussycat, Ill Kill.
Ill Kill. All right, so we got first up we got Genie.
Genie, master.
Well, I teach you every dance from here and cross the sea. Well, the first we hop. Yeah, then we ball. Yeah, then we swap. Or rock and roll, well, to the stroll. Well, a Genie, got my blue suede shoe.
Eddie Cochran cover. You can review these in one word or less. Ezra?
Sample fodder?
Sample fodder. Maybe. I'd love to hear a song that sampled that version of Genie. Beautiful. I mean, the original, the Eddie Cochran version, ain't bad at all. It's a nice rocking tune, but the beautifully... Why not? Lots of Mez shouting and a rock and roll beat. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Phil Rigby, Genie. Indeed. And Alistair, what do you make of that?
Well, if you're going to make something sound like shit, make it sound properly like shit. So, record it on a cassette player with the batteries running out, so you get all that sort of tape slowing down. So when you play it back, it's sped up and it's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kids nowadays, no notes.
Kids nowadays use expensive boutique pedals to achieve that effect.
Indeed. Apparently, that was only played the one time in 2017. Who knows why it wasn't brought back. And then after that, we got to hear You Don't Turn Me On, which apparently written by Una Baines, the earliest and not released in any other form. I'm not sure why that 1 minute ended up on YouTube, but that's all we got of it. What's your review of that, Ezra?
Oh, I thought I was reviewing both of them. Yeah, this is more so sample fodder.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, it did suffer a little bit for the actual sort of quality of the recording these. So, I mean, if we could mistake it for any old random shouting in the middle of a church hall, it's not going to score very highly, is it?
Probably not. But I love that stuff. Got hours of that. Alistair, what do you reckon?
Well, that's it. You don't turn me on. Yeah, they got it right.
Yeah. It does just sound like punk, and you can't even tell. Smith usually at least comes through, but there's not even anything that's noticeably Smithisms on it. So yes, they got no points. But the next one got a single point, and it was Grooving with Mr. Bloe, which I believe, Pip, you gave a single point to. So let's have a listen to that. So the bass line to that Grooving with Mr. Bloe, the original, is very similar to Cheatham Hill. Cheatham Hill. Yeah, give us your thoughts in 2 words, if you can, about Grooving with Mr. Bloe. Phil?
Groovy, baby.
Indeed. Reached the UK number 2 in the UK charts in 1970. Ezra?
Where were they from, Mr. Bloe?
I don't know. We can find
one
out.
Of those sleeves was in German.
Yes.
Anyway, my 2-word review is original great.
Yeah. So here we go. Mr. Bloe is the name given to musicians who performed the single Grooving with Mr. Bloe. Harry Pitch on harmonica and Zach Lawrence. They are, I think it was English. I think they were English session musicians, apparently, but don't quote me on that. Alistair, Grooving with Mr. Bloe, the fall version, which turns into Green-Eyed Local Man when they played it live.
It's all right. It's a bit...
Even the original, it didn't do that much for me in their version. Similar to what was it the other week? Was it the one where they were covering a Northern Soul song, and they basically took everything good out of the Northern Soul song and just turned it into a pub rocker? 2003 they played 2005 they played it once, actually a couple of times. 2003 they played it 3 times on tour, and it segued into Green-Eyed Local Man. Got a single point for us. Next up, we have Race Hatred, which until very recently there were no recordings of it available. And so when you read on all the Fall sites, they're like, this is one of the lost ones that we never heard. Or maybe there's some mysterious tapes. But then Cherry Red put out that 70s box set. So we've actually got a fairly decent recording of it in comparison to the previous few tracks. Let's have a listen to Race Hatred. So Race Hatred, that was recorded at Northwest Arts in Manchester in the year of our Lord 1977. What do you reckon to that, Al?
We're keeping it simple, a bit like Modern Lovers Gone Wrong. It was all right.
Indeed, you're the only person that gave it any points. You gave it 2. Nobody else gave it anything at all. Ezra, Race Hatred.
Well, that's interesting. The reason I gave it no points is because the version that was originally on the playlist was atrocious and I couldn't get any sense of the song. And that's one of the many problems with these kinds of tracks, is that, like, I mean, that's why I gave the last kind of rare track 0 points, because I can't fucking hear it. Hearing that version, I would probably have put that at the top of my list. And since I only gave 5 points, retroactively, I would like to invite you to choose between shunting that one up to the top for me or putting it on, what was it, number 6, whichever you prefer, Brendan, as it's your podcast.
Oof. Well, the thing is, if you were to put it top, that would actually mess up the entire program. So I'm going to put it second for you. So now it's got a massive. No, that doesn't make sense either. No, even if you put it top, it's only 12. My mathematics are failing me. No, you can go top for you, sure. Has anyone not told me what they think of this song?
I've not told you what I think.
So what do you think of Race Hatred? The song, not the concept. I'm sure we're all on the same page conceptually.
When I was listening to it, I found some lyrics online which parts with the lyrics of the song. I'm not quite sure where these lyrics have come from, but it was it's very confrontational politics, or you kind of, although it's got a bit of a reggae kind of feel to it as well, and it reminds me of Crass more than anything else. Which was not a direction that I would really have wanted the Fall to go into, given that Crass did that well enough for themselves, really.
So Race Hatred, the lyrics are on the annotated Fall, and believe me, if we thought the classical got into some problematic areas, you might not want to go and read those lyrics too closely. But of course, he does also shout "Destroy the National Front." If anything, it's as on the nose as the Fall got. So I've got that it's almost ska. It has got a kind of ska feel to it. It's got a nice chant, and apparently even there's keyboards on it. You can hear them, but the story is that Una Baines was waiting for a bank loan for a keyboard to come through, so she couldn't play. But I can definitely hear a keyboard. I think he moved away from those kind of very on the nose lyrics early on, but we've got a couple of them tonight. Alistair, Race Hatred. Did it tickle you?
Yeah, I've already mentioned it.
Good. Let's move on. Disco Tim has thrown in some opinions on some of these, so if I can, if I have the wherewithal, I can tell you what he thinks as well. Or maybe he's not. Fair enough. Moving on, we got 60s Whack, which is the first one tonight of the. I've asked you already, Ezra, what you think or not.
Oh, what of 60s Whack?
On Race Hatred.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to read the lyrics now.
You put it back. You put it at the top of your list, didn't you?
Put it back in the running. Yeah.
Brilliant. So
you're doing very well, Brendan. It's seamless.
60s Whack.
I'm impressed at the professionalism.
60s.
The best show last week.
This is another one taken from the brilliant 4-CD Reformation re-release from Cherry Red. That's what we needed.
What the world was waiting for.
That's it. That's all it does. All right. Al, what did you make of 60s Whack in one Earth sentence or less?
Who's that to?
As you, Alistair.
Me? No, I was busy eating. 60s whack monksies, kind of childish groove on it. It sounds like a bit of a prototype for something, though.
Didn't really go anywhere, did it, Phil?
Yeah, it's jaunty enough, isn't it? But it's waiting some.
Reformation, lads, isn't it? Just kind of bang out something desperately in the hope that something catches on.
This is in time.
Exactly. 60s whack, fairly generic Reformation era track. I imagine there's a rehearsal somewhere with a vocal on it. Gets faster at the end. Shit, is what I think. Ezra, 60s whack.
Yeah, well, all these tunes are disqualified by me by virtue of the fact that they were designed to be sung over by Mark E. Smith, and that's not the version I'm hearing. So for me, it's just out of the running by default. But even if I didn't adhere to that, this would still be fucking in the dustbin. It's terrible.
Okay, moving on. Let's listen to a song with 2/3 of the manager or whatever ridiculous title it's got, which I quite like, to be honest. The title, not the song. The song's absolutely... Well, the song's literally just... It's just the bad stuff, right? It's the bad stuff, which is on the album, but it's got that recording of that manager over it. The version on the album's instrumental, and that's bad enough. He's talking over it, doesn't it? And then just stopping and then starting again. Ridiculous. Phil, what do you make of song 2/3 with tape of tour manager early rough mix?
It didn't even come into my my reckoning list, to be honest with you, because it's just the same as off the album, isn't it?
Yeah. I only caught it late in the day. I did weed out some of the others, but it was only after about the third time I got to it, I was like, hold on, this is already on the record. But I weeded it out, but it got through, got the crew a crack, and someone gave it 4 points. Who was that? It was Alistair. Alistair gave it 4 points.
That's his new favorite song.
Defend yourself, Alistair.
What was I thinking of? It's a highly scientific, pin, try and sort of like guess for which one you're going to give points to. Because let's face it, it's just like some of it is just like different shades of brown, isn't it? Like different flavors of shit.
It's the worst version of the Fall doing a song that wasn't good enough to make the worst album they did. And there's no Smith on it. Ezra, this is disqualified in so many ways, but go on, give us your opinion.
Yeah, I would say it's better than 60s whack, but...
It is better than 60s whack. Exactly.
To be honest, I hear this, I just want to shrug my shoulders and leave the party.
Well, we're moving on.
Move on.
Moving on to another one of those great Reformation tracks. They didn't get a lot of love between them. Wed 2. Wed 2. It's another one off that list of brilliant songs that weren't good enough to make it onto the worst album the Fall ever made. Phil Rigby, Wed 2.
It goes up, and it goes down.
Alistair, Wed 2.
Yeah, it's kind of competence.
The second song we did on Wednesday, the second best song we did on Wednesday. Ezra, Wed 2.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been fantastic with Mez on it and a little honing, but what we have is shit.
I agree. I do think that this is one of the ones that, it could have made the record. Didn't though. So moving on. It did get 5 points though. Who was that? Alistair gave it 5 points. What are you thinking, Alistair?
I secretly think that Post-Reformation is the best Fall LP.
You're the only person. Let's see how he does with this one. Blonde.
That's how controversial Al is.
All right. We're listening to another one from that batch. This time it is Blonde. Thank you, Presley and Co. Blonde, Alistair.
Yeah, Blonde. not dead remarkable, is it? You know.
No, and yet you gave it 10
I did. 10.5 points.
No, you didn't give this one any.
It just sounds like a studio, like a sixth form band pissing around in a studio.
It's a pretty generic chord sequence that's appeared in at least 10 of my songs. Phil Rigby.
It just struck me as the kind of thing that Al would really like this, given his scoring on the last two, because it's pretty much the same, isn't it?
You gave it all the points it got, more or less. It came 10th in Stu's list, and it came 6th in yours.
Well, it is better than the other ones.
It is better than the other ones.
That's all that
Don't try and justify it.
What about you, Ezra? Outtake Blonde.
Yeah, I preferred the last one, actually.
As a kind of generic rocker, I mean, they're not
What was
terrible.
the last one? 60s Wag?
No, Wed 2.
Oh, 3/4 of tour manager.
Oh, yeah.
Open brackets. Play over.
But that was on the album as the bad stuff, which we hated when it goes on the album because it's actually even an instrumental version on the album. But yet, let's move on. So next up to Edie, we've got Edie, which was instrumental outtake on the reissues of This Nation's Saving Grace.
There's a can of carbon. Yes.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Hey, we like cats. This was when Bricks essentially stole the Fall to be her backing band. But unfortunately, the Adult Net was not the success they wanted it to be. Philip Rigby, what did you make of Edie, the Fall's instrumental version?
It's quite positive. It's better than the other last couple of tracks in terms of having something about it, isn't it? And I can understand why. Was this originally a Fall track and then Bricks just kind of lifted it because it wasn't getting used? That was my impression.
I don't know the story on it. Whether, because I know around that time they did play a couple of tracks that eventually ended up on the Adult Net stuff, but none of those were released as like Fall tracks. No, the instrumental version was.
I thought the Bricks lyric, because I didn't get around to listening to the Adult Net tune, so it sounded a bit forgettable, that lyric line. It wasn't anything particularly sort of pithy or hooky, but the music's quite nice. It seems an interesting bit of a pop jingle in it.
Yeah, it really kind of depends on whether you like Brix's kind of take. I've always had a soft spot for her kind of singing, but yeah, it doesn't do a lot. And it's about Edie Sedgwick, one of Andy Warhol's people. Vogue magazine named her a youthquake. Wouldn't we all like to be called a youthquake one time in our life? Alistair, what did you make of Edie?
It reminded me a bit of Strychnine, and there's a little bit of my first band whiff to it. just weren't very inventive, and it's just kind of like doing what you should be doing or what you think you should be doing.
I think so. It's all a bit well behaved, isn't it? Ezra, did it do anything for you? Didn't make your top 10?
Yeah, well, I mean, band sounds good. Would I listen to it as a piece of instrumental rock music? No, that's not the kind of instrumental rock music I like to listen to.
It's not very cosmic, is it?
No, it doesn't make me feel like I'm on crack or anything. So
I agree with all of you. So let's move on to Plaster on the Hands, which again, I wasn't really sure if I was going to let it in because it is essentially the same as the song Pilsner Trail, which we've already covered on the show. But
did it go through?
I don't think so. I'll have a check while we're listening. Yes, yeah, very, very similar to Pilsner Trail. In fact, it is just exactly the same song. So it shouldn't have got through. It should have been in here, but hey, it is. So Phil, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I think exactly the same as what I thought about Pilsner Trail, to be totally honest with you. But it's better than the other stuff on here, so that's why I got the points it did.
Exactly. It's the actual verse, the riff is pretty nice, but yeah, that chant, Pilsner Trail, it does not do very much. Al, what do you make of Pilsner Trail? I mean,
I thought it was all right. It's dead repetitive, but there's definitely a charm to it. There's a groove.
There is a groove, isn't there?
And if you can get past the shitty recording, it's not too bad.
Yes. And what about yourself there, Ezra? Plaster on the Hands? If
this had been an instrumental version, there would have been a chance that I might have had to reskin that kind of policy of mine. But yeah, it's great. Marky Smith sings on it, and there's stuff going on, and yeah, it's good. But yeah, it's essentially the same as Pilsner Trail to my ears.
Exactly. Yeah, you did give it a couple of points. Most of its points, once again, came from Alistair, who gave it something like 6. Making a mockery of this competition, Alistair, really, aren't you? But let's move on to Defurbish. So we just heard Defurbish, which was an early version of Lodestone's off Remit, and I'm torn with these early versions, especially if the only difference is that some of Smith's words are different, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly how every gig goes anyway. But what do you make of that? It had some Greenway riffage on it, Philip.
Well, I missed this one off my list because I didn't recognise that at all. So I feel a bit bad. I feel like I've missed something out there, because that sounded interesting. So I've not scored it because I've obviously just overlooked that one. So I should slap myself on the ankle.
Yeah, I kind of ruled out most of these for that reason, though. So all of those Reformation ones and all of those early versions kind of didn't give them that much time. I guess I feel like Al does about cover versions. I don't think they're real. They're not real songs. Alistair, what do you make of this one? Defurbish.
Competent and polite.
Generally, if you didn't have Smith shouting over it, it would have nothing going for it. Pretty much.
Very little.
Very little. Ezra, defurbish.
Yeah, this got points for the presence of Marquis Smith and not being like unintelligibly lo-fi and not being post-Reformation instrumental.
Indeed. Let's crack on with next up is Louie Louie, the best rock and roll song in the world. But do the Fall do the best version of it? Hint. No.
Can't hear anything, Brad. You should sound.
Maybe it's for the best, Phil.
It's not the best track on here,
I
is
thought
it?
it was being merciful.
So, this is the bass player's last gig. Give a round of applause. It's like losing your left leg. The way of the right. Oh, baby, I gotta go. The way of the right. Oh, baby, where I go. Yeah, baby, yeah. Oh, baby.
In that sense, every one of our live recordings, it's like, that's a great gig and a terrible live recording where the song's falling apart and there's just people grabbing the mic and screaming down it. Beautiful. Yeah, what do you make of it, Phil, of their version of Louie Louie?
It's one of those songs where it was much more enjoyable to be on stage playing it than to be in the crowd listening to it, I think. But we've all been in those situations. It's one of those moments, isn't it, when it's just a free for all for whatever reason on the stage. I kept thinking once Monaghan was going to jump up, start shouting Nigel,
20 Berkeley Mental.
which was our contribution to the genre, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Louie Louie, Alistair.
Yeah, this kind of links into the Electric Circus thing a bit because it was a bit of a standard that they used to do end at night. And it was normally John the Postman who'd get up doing the vocals, so I won't be surprised if he's actually one of the mic grabbers there.
No, there's I think he's involved.
The Electric Circus, but John the Postman gets an intro from Buzzcocks.
Aye. YouTube was throwing up some of that Electric Circus today, and I was going to listen, and the John Cooper Clarke one is about you never see a nickel in the Daily Express, is it? It's very, very good. Ezra, what did this version of Louie Louie do for you?
Yeah, this was probably my personal favourite. That would be why I gave it top ranking. And yeah, it's atrocious, but, I love any kind of ramshackle performance like that as a person who's been to gigs and I've seen bands just like completely falling apart on the stage. I love to be a part of those kind of performances. And yeah, they're committed to the bit of being as fucking atrociously, shittily disrespectful to this tune as they possibly can. And it's quite funny to listen to. So yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot.
Indeed, it stuck out. It's as lo-fi as it gets, just that it should be for a Louie Louie cover. It's beautiful. It falls apart. I put this as my second top. Give it 9. I really enjoyed it, and it gave me gives you an insight into the beginning bit where it's the bass player's last gig, and then but Riley wants to be part of this too, so he has to put his it's like losing your left leg. Like Smith definitely shot a glance at him for that. I do the quips, Riley.
Yeah, it's that all over, isn't it? I had exactly the same thought.
I want to take a bit of a detour here. We've talked about songs that this is the bottom of the barrel, and we're not going to be here again. So I'm going to take a few minutes to read a bit of a letter that Smith sent to F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T, the bass player, in '77. So if you can can see that though. This is the list that he typed out of all the songs that they were trying to do in 77. We've kind of talked about it briefly before, but if you have a look, I'll just read it through and stop me if there's anything of interest. So it starts off with recorded, which clearly some of these have not been recorded, or if they are, nobody's ever seen got the tape. So Frightened, Psycho Mafia, Stepping Out, Futures and Past, Copped It, It's Not Right, Freak Show, Repetition, Last Orders, Oh Brother, Your Heart Out, Roll the Bones, and The Outsiders. So at least 4 there. It's Not Right, Freak Show, Roll the Bones, and The Outsiders never saw the light of day unless they became different songs. You could have had the and then they've shown they've got covers of Louie Louie, Bo Diddley's a Gunslinger, which they've repurposed several times, and Brand New Cadillac, which we did cover on one of the cracks. Then they start talking about stuff in a rough sense. You've got Who Is He, Child's Dead, Slurs, Not Going Home, Paranoid Baby, and Deeper Than Sin, I think it is. Again, none of those ever made it out of the practice room, or maybe even into the practice room. And they talk about covering Sweet Jane and Wild Thing. Again, neither of which we ever heard. And then right down at the bottom, unrecorded, MES, Where the Ideas Run Out, Couple of Punks, I Want to Be an Office Worker, Dictator of the NE, Hey Student, Postcard, which is a poem really, he takes time to point out, My Big Town, Kitchens and Halls, History of the World, Want Some Drugs or Something, Spectre versus Rector, Exorcist, New Attack, Happy Memories and a Bitter Taste, Really, Squeals of a Machine. He notes that all these titles can be changed. And they talk about I Can Hear the Grass Grow, I'm a Man, Who Do You Love, and Any Blues as covers. So yeah, of those unrecorded ones, I think only Spectre versus Rector, Hey Student, and then History of the World that became HOW off Seminole. Again, could be a totally different song, but anything of interest there, I think. Are you peering closely there, Phil? Looks like you are.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm my curiosity's been piqued by a few things there.
Go on.
Any Blues is the biggest one there. It really surprises me. Didn't you think he's saying any blues songs? Because it's got I'm a Man and Who Do You Love?
Yeah, I don't think there's a song called Any Blues that he's referring to. There's a song called All Blues.
It just strikes me as a bit odd. I wouldn't have thought of the Blues as somewhere where they would kind of go really for the covers.
There's a couple on there though that I'm glad they didn't cover. I wouldn't have liked to have heard Sweet Jane or Wild Thing.
Yeah, Sweet Jane's an odd one, isn't it?
You can imagine it. You don't go on.
I don't know how they'd handle it.
You can just imagine exactly what it would sound like. You can imagine Smith singing Wild Thing and know exactly that didn't need to be realised.
I don't think I can, but Sweet Jane's an odd one because it's such a gentle song, isn't it?
Yeah, I imagine I could.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can rough up Louie dead easy though, can't you?
Yeah.
He was very capable of turning out a rough song, and it's just the way you play it, isn't it? Like a bit of distortion on it. It's a bit harder.
Rock and roll, innit? I Want to Be an Office Worker, Dictator of the NE, Kitchens and Halls. Yeah, Squeals of a Machine. Interesting. I quite like that title. Is there anything here strike you as something that you wish had made it into the real world?
People I Like, they work in kitchens and halls.
Yes. So interesting. This was 77, so similar to that version of Louie Louie that we just heard. And what's up next? Let's have a look. So next up after Louie Louie's Suddenly, Certainly. the idea is that that was an outtake, studio outtake. It's got Smith on it, but it's apparently an early version of Jet Plane. We kind of liked, but the thing about Jet Plane, if you remember, the lyrics were very funny about some kind of doctor and his wife getting on the plane. I can't remember what it was, but I remember them being amusing. Phil, suddenly, certainly.
Yeah, it's just a bit too generic. This, for my taste, is the lick that keeps repeating is just a bit too cock rock for my backus.
It is. It's another one of those brainwave.
Back to safe territory. Back to our
Sit down, Peter.
Flagging off Greenway's guitar.
Go and have a think about what you're doing. I tell you who didn't dislike it. A young man called Stuart Discotheque, who put it top of his list. He said this was his favourite, the whole thing. Ezra, what did you make of that? Suddenly, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like a track which had been released on a record, I would have given it some points. But yeah, the lack of Marky Smith disqualifies it.
Yeah, he's on there.
Is he? Well, it was also boring.
It is boring. It is dull. And I do think it turns up later as Jet Plane with a little bit changed, but hadn't made its way there yet. What do you reckon to you, Alistair?
Well, kind of like what Phil said, like, you know, it's boring, isn't it? Like, really, you know, if you'd give it, comparing it to sort of like what was going around at the time, say like Oasis or something like that, it kind of pisses on it, on that kind of like blandness, but it's still a bit middle of the road, isn't it?
If you're going to play bland music right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're moving up to the top half of the list here. So we've got stuff that more than one person actually gave points to. So we've got White Lines. Well, at this point, there's not many people who haven't heard Liquid Liquid's original, but you get a chance to play it. Why not? Alistair, what did you make of that quote cover of White Lines? That Nagel, possibly? I think it's Nagel. Might be Dave Bush, but I think it's Nagel. What do you reckon?
If it is Nagel, that's a real sort of like blotch on a CV, I think. You know, I really didn't like that one.
And yet, Ezra, what did you make to the cover of White Lines?
Yeah, these were the tracks which actually would have gotten some points if it had some Mez action on it. I did look into these tracks, and I might have just gotten completely mixed up, but I was under the impression that it was Funky Size work, this.
Right, could well be. I know he definitely did some keyboardy stuff.
Entirely possible that I'm wrong, but yeah, anyways, yeah, you know, like I like the kind of happy hardcore vibe of it, and I think that, yeah, if like these had become proper tracks, they could have been killers. I think like one thing is whoever it is making the track, I think, is thinking too much in terms of what the Fall are. Whereas, you know, if it had been me, I would have just like doubled down on the, you know, the alien nature of the sequenced music and the synths, and done less with kind of like doing melodies and stuff. And I think that we would have been much better for that. And maybe would have got the green light from Smith. Who knows? But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. It's hard to know where these kind of tracks have come from. I've seen little bits and bobs here and there, especially about the other one, Italiano, which seems to be like cut from the same cloth. Pip, what did this do for you? Does it even count?
It's sort of like Preset City, isn't it? But I didn't mind it. It is a bit cheesy, but I don't mind a little bit of cheese. I thought it was fun. And it's a good shout on the liquid from. I was curious as to what this was actually released on. The Time Enough at Last thing that comes up on the video. Is that a legit release or is that a bootleg?
I think it's a legit. It's a big one actually. When you look at the
well, because it's a Robert Heinlein novel, isn't it? Time Enough at Last, and I wondered if that was another Smithy influence.
Well, there's a song called Time Enough at Last that we've covered, and it's based on that Twilight Zone episode where what's his name, the penguin Meredith. Burgess Meredith drops his glasses and snaps on at the end, right? But the actual Time Enough at Last Fall record, I had a look into it on Discogs. It's decent. It'd actually be a very good entry point for the Fall, but then it's got weird shit in there as well, like that White Lines is like the third track on CD1. But then you get into like the rest of it. It's got, Billy's Dead, Psycho Mafia, Life Just Bounces, Cheetah Mill, Free Range. It's got a lot of big uns on there. It came out on, so it is legit, but just bizarre. I think the idea maybe was that they were scratching around for some new, like unreleased Fall stuff. This was what they got out of Funky Size Walkman or wherever they managed to scrape that one together from. But let's move on and have a listen to Sten Gun Rock, another one of those really early ones that until quite recently we didn't really have a recording for. Sten Gun Rock, Pip. We're getting to the good ones now.
Is this an original?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Is it? Yeah, I thought it was all right. I mean, it's a nice slice of early Fall, isn't it? And it's got a nice, catchy rhythm section to it. That checka checka jack kind of rhythm always goes through it. I thought it was okay. Yeah, I think it was. It's a nice tune.
Came up third in your list, which is nice. What about you, Al? Did it tickle you?
Wooden Sten Gun. That's what I'd say. It's just a bit like it's dead obvious. It's early Fall, like early. It's like it's not quite come together yet.
I reckon, yeah. Sten Gun Rock, but if it was called Stun Gun Rock, I think that would be a good Ramones title. I imagine the Ramones. In fact, I imagine the Ramones doing this song like 5 times faster. A Stun Gun Rock, a Stun Gun Rock. It would actually be a good Ramones
maybe
tune.
That's why I thought it was a cover, because it does have that Ramonesy kind of sensibility about it, doesn't it?
But other than Mez's vocals, that are definitely Mez, and like some of the other really, really early ones where it's could be any other Johnny Rotten clone, this is definitely Mez, but pretty forgettable. Ezra, what did you make of Sten Gun Rock?
I think maybe the title of the track, it put me in mind of The Clash. I fucking hate The Clash. And so that did not help me enjoy this tune. And it's boring.
Fair enough. Agree. Let's have a listen to their Destruction of Beefheart. They drop out Boogie, Elle's favourite.
You wanna do what? You wanna do what? I told you what? I told you what?
Oh, hold on. That's not the Falls version. That's the original, like Captain Beefheart off Safe as Milk. Now, I'm sure the Fall did it just as well. Let's have a listen to what they did. So you probably didn't notice there, but I segued back into the Beefheart version. Phil, what did you make of that Tin Beefheart cover that you gave maximum points to?
It's I didn't lie.
Fourth on your list.
I did exactly the same thing that you. This was the only one where I was like, yeah, I'm going to listen to the original again, just as a bit of a comparison. And because I couldn't quite remember the 3/4 change in it and exactly what the Beefheart record is. So that's why I went back to it. They fucking slaughter it on stage, don't they? They just hold it up, slit its throat, and let it bleed on stage. It's like the bands are doing their best to ignore Marky Smith on stage as he wanders around fiddling with everybody's amps and stuff. It's a great song. It's a funny version of it, but it's not good.
Not good, is it? I like Smith's kind of habit with the mic, where he looks like he's checking whether the leads come out, but he's singing through a radio mic on that one. It's not a lead, but every few seconds he looks like he's checking where the lead should be.
But you, as a frontman, there are certain like nervous tics, aren't there, that you sort of incorporate just to like sort of fill gaps in performance.
He'll fill some gaps in it. Dropout Boogie, lo-fi, but not in a good way. Unlike the it doesn't sound much like the original, but it is the Fall, so it is great. And Smith is rambling all over it. It's shit. Ezra, what do you make of Dropout Boogie? Apparently, there is a better recording from I think Glastonbury, but only found out later.
I'm fond of the Glastonbury performance version. Obviously, it doesn't hold a candle to the original version, but we're talking about Beefheart here. I think like if you're going to cover Beefheart, you either have to gut the corpse of the song entirely, or you have to be a very dedicated fan. Good choice
indeed. But talking of successful Beefheart covers, Alistair, come on, what do you think about this, and how does it compare to the late great FS?
Well, it reminds me a little of some of them daft little projects that you used to invite me to be involved with, Brendan, with just like Murder ABBA songs or Michael Jackson or something like that, with no rehearsal whatsoever, playing instruments that you don't know how to play.
That's on right, innit?
Situation normal.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I found it quite painful.
Moving on. So
make that saying something.
There's the dude who listens to like brown noise for fun. All right, having to listen to the other one of potentially funky sized Walkman tapes that he passed off as a fall song, Italiano.
Hans, take it quick before they arrest me. It's hot.
I was just reading just today, actually, that I think it was Steve Pringle, Following Fives, who said that Italiano was a shit techno version of Oliano off Like User, but I guess it is, isn't it?
I'm just trying to come through. Where's the captain? Over, Cap.
Yeah, not too bad. Although, different enough. And it would have been interesting to hear Smith's vocals over that Italiano, because it does have a little bit of a whiff of the, Italo disco kind of stuff that apparently he was pretty fond of. Ezra, what did you, are you having your tea? You all right? You okay? Ezra,
Yep.
What do you make of Italiano?
Yeah, that hadn't struck me, the Oliano thing, and I actually think that if you'd combined the kind of like happy hardcore intro of Italiano with the recording of Oliano, you might have the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T track.
Indeed. Shall we try it? Shall we see what happens?
Go for it.
The hell, Captain,
He's a better DJ than me to make that work, but yes, I do.
No, you just
agree.
need the intro. It's the intro. You don't need the.
Do it again. Do it again, Brendan.
Let's have another try. Do it properly. If it's not worth doing, it's not worth doing properly.
There's £30,000. Take it quick before they arrest me. It's hot.
That's good.
Perfect. You were right.
I know I'm right.
Oh, all in all, it did get close to the top 4. It almost got its day in the sun, but not quite. It was up there. It got 15 points, Italiano. A good chunk of them from me because I thought it was splendid. But Disco Stu put it as second best. So he really, really did enjoy it. But I'm going to take another little bit of a detour here that Alistair cheated a little bit. And in his 4th place, do you remember what you put, Alistair? I gave you a clue. It's a song you've mentioned more than once on this podcast.
Who like Cali? Who like herbs? Who like a good smoke? Who like ganja? Who like a man like smoke? Bamba! Yeah! Mash it! Zamali! Mash it! Hey, Bamba! Hey, just that. Yeah? Hope I slap this, I go on, but still. What's the herb? Come on. Size 9. Word? Yeah, man. Some herbs? Yeah, Joe. Yeah, man. Well, too bad because Grizzly smoke off the whole life. Mash it, Grizzly!
Alistair, what was that? And why did you put it at number 5 on your list?
That was Steel Pulse, wasn't it? Song about him taking his collie dog out for a walk.
Macasplaff.
Yeah, it's a dead funny version of that on a kids' TV program in, I think it's Germany or something like that. And yeah, they're all there singing all it, but like this song that's just obviously about weed. And there's like sort of like loads of like 12-year-olds dancing in like in front of them. It's fantastic. But I really like that LP, the Short Circuit one. It's for a compilation. Not a bad one, I think through repeated listens, I've actually got to like stuff on there like the drones, which it's a bit of an acquired taste. But the sort of Buzzcocks on there, the Joy Division stuff, that's all good. John Cooper Clarke, Steel Pulse, there's a good variety of stuff on there.
It is, and one of the Fall songs that we will get to, but we haven't, which suggests that maybe it got quite a few points. But that's Steel Pulse Maca Spliff off the Electric Circus 10-inch, which was the very first Fall releases.
I think it was a B-side to a single as well, Macca's Splaff.
It's a great tune, and I really like kind of whistle that punctuates it. But next up is a song the Fall had several goes at. So Hey Fascist, which later turned up as Hey Student and may or may not be related to Hey Mark Riley. Pip, what's your take on Hey Fascist, the Fall song? You're muted, dude. I don't know what happened there.
There we go, man. Yeah, it's been floating around for ages, Hey Fascist, hasn't it? So I'm kind of more familiar with this one, and like Stepping Out and those ones that have kind of done rounds before. But to my ear, this is exactly how a song like this should be recorded, but it's just not my bag, really. It's just a bit too punky with a capital P. It's got that oi sort of rhythm to it. Oh yeah, I don't mind it as a knockabout, you know, pissed off in a gig if I heard it, but it's been done to death now. Really.
Yeah, it's a bit pogo, isn't it? But the lyrics are on the annotated Fall, and these ones are ones that you can read in 2023 out loud. The dead director of the BBC, I'll show you what I'd love to see, swastikas and swimming pools. I pick up a knife and I sing this tune. Hey fascist. Alistair, hey fascist.
Yeah, it's got that kind of Johnny Rotten sneer in it, hasn't it? That's the only bit that I'm not dead keen on, but I quite like the composition, and I quite like Hey Student as well. The Peel Session version was a corker.
Yeah, I prefer this version to Hey Student because I think you're right, Phil. I agree with you. If you're going to do that kind of stuff, a lo-fi, super scratchy recording is the way to do it. But yeah, on the nose. You put it second in your list, Al, which is high praise indeed. Ezra, what about Hey Fascist for you?
I really think that one of the founding members of Prolapse listened to this. And they were like, yeah, if we can just learn to play like the sound of this recording, it'll sound fucking awesome. And they were right.
Indeed. Well, that takes us up to the last four. So anything left has now actually got a chance of going into the competition main. So what we'll do is we'll do second against third, and then we'll do first against fourth, and whichever two win, they actually get a chance to go back into the second round to fight with the big boys, if you can believe it. 4 of these fucking pranks.
They will last for seconds.
But here's something I'd like to do before we get onto that. So I've double checked a few times on the track record and on the Reformation site and annotated Fall and also Fall in Fives to just see if we've definitely not missed any. And so far, I think we've managed to get all of them, and we're right down at the bottom. We've listened, by the time we've finished the first round in about 6 or 7 episodes' time, we've listened to every single Fall song that has been released.
That's a bloody milestone, if ever I've heard one.
So there's about 5 or 6 that are listed.
Do we have a party?
I think we should. So here's some songs that definitely, other than that list that I read early from F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T, these are songs that actually that led to feel. Here's some songs that actually were recorded, and so someone out there probably has a gig with these songs on them. So one that wasn't available for the list, but actually you can get, is "Cock in My Pocket," which is just so close to Stout Man. Like, we already had that one. I didn't allow that, so their version of "Cock in My Pocket" by the Stooges, which is essentially just Stout Man. So
What year is it that they do that?
Oh, it was the same time. They did it like basically they just started playing Cock in My Pocket and then Smith just did his lyrics to Stout Man Over. So what album is that on? Is that on it's one of the later ones, like 2015 or something like that. It was late era.
It's a young band, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's on sublingual tablet, so that's 2015. These are songs that you can't get anywhere. Good luck. So there's one called Ben's Instrumental, which is also called Ben's. Maybe there's a couple, and basically like 10 seconds of Ben Pritchard playing something live on stage that people out there have classed as a fall song. Smith farting into a tin. There's a song called Interference, which is a version of Hurricane Edward. There's the song Classical Gas, which apparently was played live at 2 gigs, but has remained unrecorded. A song called Love Between, which was played instrumentally at some gigs and was a Tim Presley song and later turned up on his White Fence album. They covered 1969 by the Stooges, played a couple of times, but never released. People say there's a recording out there. And then there's a song called Tunnel, which is an early version of Chiselers, but not really counting the early versions. So other than that, all of these are either covers or other versions. So there's not, I think we've done it. I think we've done it, lads, once we've listened to them all. Steve Pringle reckoned that there was 525 songs. I reckon there's somewhere between 522 and 537, depending on how you count. So we can get into that another time maybe, but I do think by the time you've listened to all these episodes and we've done them, then we have covered every single fall song. And then we can really get into what's the best. Which one's the best?
We've only scratched the surface.
Exactly. So we're going to come down to the first showdown of the evening. And this is Smith and Mark versus Instrumental Outtake off the Infotainment Scan. So let's have a listen to Smith and Mark first.
Been captured. Never. His spectrum knowledge cannot be encapsulated within the confines of its treatment scale. Remember Carter, the workman, yellow feather appear at the opening of upmarket shops and streets.
Finally, a good one, a proper one. Unfortunately, it is just Exploding Chimney, which we actually did last week and sadly went out last week. So he's got another chance. Phil, what do you reckon to Smith and Mark?
I liked Exploding Chimney. So it's starting in a good position. You can there's just like a sea change difference, isn't there, in these tracks now? They're actually proper songs now, with decent studio recordings and stuff that you're actually listening to. So yeah, quite like this one.
Indeed. Again, is it cheating? In the last one we did
bit of cheating.
Yeah, nice Mez delivery, and it's different.
Danny wouldn't stand this, I'm telling you.
No, he wouldn't, but it's different enough, and maybe even better than Exploding Chimney. Though I'm docking it 1 point for being an old version. Yeah, Alistair, Smith and Mark, what do you reckon?
I could tell it was something that it was an alt version of another song. It was all right.
It was indeed. Ezra, what do you make of this alt version?
Well, it was indicative of the kind of anti-fervor that the playlist kind of, frame of mind that the playlist put me in. I listened to this and I was like, oh, this sounds like Exploding Chimney. But I was just so disillusioned by it all, I couldn't be asked to check. So I'm glad that I was right in thinking that. And yeah, Exploding Chimney actually fucking ace track. And this one too.
What did it go out to, Exploding Chimney? Can you remember?
I think it was Blindness, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't it? I had no chance, didn't it? But it came close. It's decent. If it gets if it gets an easy one in round two, it might go a bit. Yeah. So it is up against instrumental outtake from Infotainment Scan. But Smith and Mark, I put that as my top choice. I really did like it. But again, I think similar to you, Ezra, I was disillusioned by the playlist so much. In this case, as soon as something half decent came up, I just put it straight at the top of the list. But let's have a listen to instrumental outtake, what it is up against. Hypnotic, mesmerizing. Alistair, what did you make of instrumental outtake?
Yeah, it's a bit like a bad Nick Drake song, wasn't it? No, it reminded me. It did actually remind me a bit of some of the acoustic Sabado stuff from early 90s. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that it's Infotainment Scan era, and it sounds as different from the stuff on that album as it's absolutely possible. And it would have been really nice to have a Smith vocal on there, but yeah, I think that was a bit harsh with the Nick Drake comment. but it's a nice rustic kind of cyclical tune, and yeah, I quite liked it. I think it's got its moments. Ezra, what did you make to instrumental outtake?
It was good, but as I've mentioned, I'm disqualifying any instrumentals unless they were included on an actual album or a release. So yeah, it doesn't make the grade for me.
I get you. I respect that. In the same way that Alistair is not a fan of covers, and I don't think songs that Smith doesn't sing on should be counted in the same way. Although I'll give Eleni a pass. But the Book of Lies, no, thank you. But here's another little detour that we don't need to take. But given that Ezra gives me a hard time when I split songs or put them together, but he doesn't think I should, let's have a little quiz called 1 or 2. I'm gonna read you a title that has either a dash or a hyphen or a slash or something, and you simply have to say 1 or 2, whether it is one song or two songs, and then I will promptly ignore that when it pops up in the.
You should have written a tune for this bit.
Probably. So here it is. First one: crap rap, like to blow.
1.
Is 0 an option?
Indeed. Fortress / Deer Park.
1.
1, yeah.
Winter Postel Maxi, Winter 2.
1.
I don't know if I'm saying 1 just because that's how I've always heard it. Probably 1.
Hexen Definitive Strife Knot.
1.
Yeah, probably going 1 on that.
Gross Chapel British Grenadiers.
1.
It's on Dragon. It's on Bed City, so I can't remember where they go.
Yes. Octo Realm / Ketamine Sun.
1.
Yeah, no, it's the. I don't know. I'm struggling with it.
Dog is Life / Jerusalem, the one that started this whole thing.
Also 1.
Well, Jerusalem is a tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a tune.
It's meaningless without Dog is Life, though. I mean, that's the thing. If you look into it,
I think Mr. Blake may have a thought about
into it. There's a lot that comes to light when you have it with Dog is Life first.
Mansion.
I mean, you might be able to talk me into it. I don't know.
Mansion / 2NK Roachment.
That's 2.
Is that
it? This Nation's Saving Grace. It's the beginning and end, right? So,
yeah.
But one's an instrumental version of the other, which is why I threw that in.
So.
Same for this next one. I Come and Stand at Your Door / Jap Kid.
That's also 2.
Yeah, there's 2 definitely.
How about this one then? Hey Mark Riley / Hey Fascist / Hey Student.
All the same song. It's actually about the same person.
Okay. How about New Big Prince / Big New Priest / Hit Priest?
Oh, those are all separate.
3.
So New Big Prince and Big New Priest, you're counting as 2 separate songs?
Yep.
Yes.
You just don't remember them. Xmas with Simon / Christmas Tide.
You know the answer already. Why are you asking us, brother?
Xmas with Simon / Christmas Tide.
That's 2.
Yeah.
Or 2 then.
One, you're all wrong. The Chislers / Chillinist / Interlude Chillinism.
Oh,
That's three. That's three tracks.
Control that one.
That's one.
That's three tracks.
Young Nev's
Very
Antidotes.
individually interesting.
Young Nev's Antidotes / Anecdotes and Antidotes in B sharp.
So that's two.
That's two.
My ex-classmates' kids / I wake up in the city.
Two.
That's also two.
So we're counting things that just have different mez vocals on. They count as two, do they?
Yeah.
They do, yeah.
Okay.
It's like Protein Christmas, isn't it? And what are the other ones called?
What about this one? Protein Protection / We Wish You a Protein Christmas.
Yeah, that's also two.
I refer the honourable gentleman to my previous answer.
So far, your answer is everything is two except for Octo Realm / Ketamine Sun, which is definitely one.
It's basically they're all what we say, apart from when you say it, and then we say the opposite.
How about Midnight in Aspen / Midnight in Aspen Reprise?
Now that's one, maybe.
Yeah.
I know it's a technicality. A reprise is by definition a second, isn't it?
Last few, I feel inclined to read them all now I've got this far. Gotta See Jane / Reprise : Jane Bastardo.
Bastardo's not the same song as Gotta See Jane, is it?
How about Janet, Johnny and Jane / Janet versus Johnny?
I think they're separate. I think they're very different songs.
They're two. That's two.
Well, one of them didn't feature in the first round, so we'll have to remedy that in round two. 50-year-old man / inferior product man.
That's two.
Yeah.
I can't remember Inferior Product.
Well, inferior product man is we did it in the last Between the Cracks episode. It is essentially it's the same song, but Smith has changed the lyrics a bit. Enough.
It's two then.
Exploding Chimney / Smith and Mark.
Two.
Cowboy Gregory / Cowboy George.
I think that's also two.
Yeah, both on that.
City Dweller / Cab Driver.
I can't remember.
That's definitely two. Two very good tracks.
Light / Fireworks.
Which one's Light?
That's the experimental one off. Is it off at Infotainment Scan?
It is, yeah.
It's really good. It's very un-infotainment scanny, but it's I would say it's one. It's a bit sound
I'd say
quality.
it's the best track.
That's a two then.
Well, that delightful detour of seeing just how far we can dig into the backwaters of the fall. And I put that on Twitter this week, and Paul Hanley replied, actually, which was interesting. He said that we should include CNC because the other part of it, such as smithering, apparently was its own bit, and then they did the CNC Hassle Smuck, and they did Black Knight, so they would segue that into other things, but I don't know. I think that's CNC with bits stuck on. But anyway, enough to the final and best showdown of the evening, which is what came first, which was Stepping Out, which was a good 10 points ahead of the next one. And what came in fourth, which was Jack the Ripper, the cover, mostly because...
Listen, when you play Jack the Ripper, you've got to play the keyboard solo that ladies, because after I heard that, I just thought everything else in this list has to beat that solo.
Yes, and I'd say that solo has all the trappings of a Marky Smith keyboard solo. It's mostly got its points from you putting it first and me putting it fourth. Got it enough points to eke in with the little bit of love from a couple of other people along the way. So let's have a listen first to Jack the Ripper, then we'll listen to Stepping Out.
Brendan, you do know we're recording a podcast, don't you?
It's damn there.
Can you
I
not
thought you
hear?
got distracted writing your shopping list out again.
Can you not hear that? You can hear that, right?
No, you're not even sure anything.
It's delightful when John Peel played those records at the wrong speed every day. That's what this is. It's delightful. It's all staying in.
Play the second half of this.
I will.
streets of London late at night. With a little black bag that's oh so tight.
It's just saying if he had a keyboard solo as that one. He doesn't, does he? Phil, what did you make of Jack the Ripper?
Well, I thought the tune itself, I just thought bounced along. I thought it was quite a nice sort of garagey kind of 60s tune. But that solo, it's so skronking and dissonant, and it just hits all those nasty little dissonances. It's brilliant. And it was, like I said before, as soon as I heard that, it was like, oh, favourite bit of this whole list. Everything else is going to beat that. So I stuck that with 10 points, and then I used that as my touchstone for everything.
Yeah, I've said nice Elaine sounds. The lad's in great full pub flow, good interplay, shouty mez, nicely abstract, nice keys at the end, mez probably, as a Halloween song, because it was played live on Halloween, better than their version of Werewolves of London, I said.
Yes, I agree with that.
Alistair, what did you make of the Jack the Ripper?
Yeah, was it the Screaming Lord Such version that you played before?
Yeah.
Because it was written by Mr. Such. But yeah, it's a cracking version by the One Way Streets as well, which shoots the One Way Streets. So definitely recommend checking out. It's just like really raw ass garage shit from the 60s. But yeah, it was a bit of a sort of a standard. And like the full version, it was a bit polite, and then Eleni kicks in, and as Phil said, she kind of takes over and makes it a very kind of enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and she's definitely doing some good stuff, but I do think it's got all the hallmarks. We listened to Tempo House the other week, right? And he's like, you can see him on stage at the Hacienda, and he just walks over.
No, I disagree with you. I think it's I don't think that's somebody playing random notes. I think that's somebody who knows exactly what they're going for.
I don't know, Phil. I don't know.
But if you see some videos that he's kind of between the two, like she'll be playing some stuff and he'll just press off the keys while she's still playing. So it could be something similar. A collaboration, if you like.
Co-production.
So what did you make of this version of Jack the Ripper?
Yeah, I probably, because I was so disillusioned with the rest of it, I can't remember any of this stuff that you're talking about. I just heard like another kind of muddy live recording, and I was just like, oh, fuck this. I probably skipped it, to be honest with you.
It's been a long week, Ezra.
I'll have to listen to it again, But yeah, it's been a tough week in terms of listening to the full.
Well, continuing my run of professionalism this evening, I forgot to read out any of Stu's comments so far. So this is what he thought. This is what he thought of Smith and Mark.
What did Stu think of that one, right?
Well, this is what he thought of Smith and Mark, what we talked about 20 minutes ago. I love Exploding Chimney, and this is just as good in its own way. I've been happy to have this on the album, for sure, maybe as parts 1 and 2, a la Shoulder Pads, which I forgot to mention in our list earlier. And
Shoulder Pads is one.
I agree. Instrumental outtake, nice and bluesy, reminds me of somewhat of the CNC material at the beginning of the track. Would have been nice to see them use this in part of a good old cut-up. As it stands, I could happily listen to this good shit. And that brings us to what does he think of Jack the Ripper? Another novelty song cover. It's fine and would have been fun live for sure, but compared to other stuff on this list, I wouldn't look at it twice, says Stu. Gives it 0 points. But it is up against Stepping Out, which I think is a cop-out to say that you like this. Let's have a listen. Let's have a listen. Let's have a listen anyway.
You're probably a bad person.
Let's have a listen anyway, shall we?
I used to believe everything I read. I used to believe everything I read. I used to believe everything I read. But that's all changed and now I'm stepping out. But that's all changed and now I'm stepping out. Stepping out. Stepping out.
I just realised we didn't vote on the last one either. Oh God!
It's only the ruddy, bloody point of the podcast.
All right, let's have a vote before we talk about this. Let's have a vote between Smith and Mark and instrumental Outcast. Phil, which one of those two are you putting through, Smith and Mark or instrumental outtake?
I've completely forgotten both of them.
Smith and Mark is exploding
You meant
chimney.
to say Smith and Mark, Phil.
Smith and Mark
Smith
is
and Mark.
yeah, exploding chimney, and the other one is the one that I'll describe as a shit Nick Drake song.
Yeah, no.
Al, which one are you putting through?
Yeah, I'll go for Chimneys myself.
Fair enough, Ezra.
The Mark.
Yes, and so am I. No, interestingly, Disco Tim gave them both 3, so it's anyway. So Smith and Mark.
I never actually told you what I thought of the instrument. Well, that was the part of it. I won't do it now though, because it's already an editing nightmare. This episode.
I'm not touching it. Not touching it. I've given up on any kind of editing. It doesn't matter. It's all just charming.
It's. Do you want me to tell you what I thought?
Yeah, I do. I'm not editing any of this.
It's. It reminds me of like the type of tape that a guitarist brings in to like a rehearsal session. That's like it's an idea that needs to be worked out. It's not bad, but it's just not developed, is it? It just doesn't go anywhere.
No, and considering it's like 15 years after CNC Mitherings, and it sounds like a pretty dodgy version of that.
Yeah, it's
right.
not as good.
So let's hear what we all think of Stepping Out, the first or second ever released Fall. It depends what is on the track listing. Al, you might know this. Is it first, or what's the track listing of that Electric Circus thing?
No, I'll have to go and get it.
Go on, you go and get it, and I'll look on the internet like us moderners do. Stepping Out is the very first song on it on side 1. So obviously someone thought it was the best. So that is the very first Fall song that anyone would have ever heard on vinyl, unless of course you heard Bingo Masters, which had been recorded earlier and put in the bin for a year. Maybe don't check me on those dates. Alistair, what do you think of Stepping Out?
Yeah, I quite like it. I think the drums work well on it, and the way that the bass kind of like has a big lead part in it is kind of the way that Hamlet kind of went. In the way that, you know, the bass could lead the song. You got the nice scratchy guitars and the plinky plonky keyboards, and it just bobs along quite merrily, you know. Catchy lyric.
It's very, very similar, and I meant to check out. I always get Joy Division songs mixed up, but I thought it was very, very similar in that melodic bass to something off Unknown Pleasures. But then it's got some nice twists and turns in it. It's actually, unlike a lot of those very early fall punky ones, it's got a really interesting and nice structure. I think Smith's the worst thing on it. The Stepping Out chorus, I think, is why I actually don't like it. If he'd have had something a little better, more interesting, I think I would have.
You've got to give a bit of credit to Virgin for this as well, like, because it'll have been the live recording, and it's like the actual sound of the gig, the production is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think I'd more Fall recordings, you know, if they'd done it, if they recorded the full set, I would have loved to have heard that.
That's interesting. I wonder if I imagine somewhere there is a list of what else was played on that set. I'll see if I can find it. What do you reckon, Phil?
So it's got some nostalgia points for me, this one, because when I was first getting into the Fall, I had that 3 CD set, Psychic Dancehall, and this is like the first track on it, I think. So it was not only did I have like this brand new set of Fall songs, but like this was a new song to me at the time, and I love everything about it. I love the stuttery drum intro where it's, you know, is that deliberate or is he sort of drops a beat somewhere? And then I think the riff that they get going in this song is actually a bit of a musical key for what they would base their entire career on, because it's a 2-note riff, but it's not just like everybody else would do. It's got this like variation to it, this angularness to it, which is the Fall sound, if ever there is a Fall sound. And I know what you mean about Mark being the weakest link on this song, on this performance, probably, but I can't kind of like, I think the moronic lyric fits the moronic riff. It's brute. It is shit, but I kind of forgive it because I think it fits conceptually with everything else that's going on. And so it's got nostalgic points, but I think it's an important record in the fallback catalogue. I think it's a glimpse of the stuff that would make it special. Really.
Yeah, I'll give you that, and I think it really is just that line stepping out. The rest of it, I can reminded me of the lyrics for "Systematic Abuse." Interestingly enough, of a young man stirs at his cupboard and talks about exactly how he feels.
These potatoes, man, they just all look the same.
I know it's a bit of a punching bag. I should stop going to that well. Apparently, and this is according to the track record, which is a brilliant resource. It's like got all the Falls, like stuff about all the Falls gigs. It's really good. And but it says that all we know is that Stepping Out Last Orders and Hey Fascist were played on that night. We don't know anything else. Ezra, what do you think of Stepping Out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I concur with the historic importance and all that stuff, and it's well played. But honestly, when I hear the lyrics, and it is one of those, a byproduct of the quality of the production is that you can quite clearly hear everything that he's saying. And all I can picture in the back of my mind is that like Ben Shapiro or Joe Rogan or some person of their ilk is at some point going to adopt this for their fucking theme tune, for their fucking opinio vomit, and like that concerns me a great deal.
It's interesting. Well, the lyrics apparently were mostly written by Tony Friel, and so the other kind of early songs that we've kind of shit on as well, it seems that Una Baines wrote some lyrics, so it seems like quite early on Smith was happy to sing without changing much the lyrics of other people, which is weird because he was already writing, and maybe like confidence, or maybe there was some kind of agreement that they would kind of. It's not like they sang their own songs, which is unusual in a band. It's like you'd be writing lyrics and writing.
First lineup though was very sort of commie orientated, wasn't it? So, and I imagine that they felt much more capable of shouting Mark down on stuff here than like they were owed a slice of the creative pie. Do you know what I mean? It
does kind of make sense, and it's interesting we're finishing these cracks with the very, very first Fall song. Well done. We don't have to listen to any more of these dregs. It's like and we're getting close to the end of the round, as I've said, and we've culled pretty much all of the instrumentals, all of the covers, all of the skits, which, to be honest, we could have just done that at the start and just gone straight to round two. But what would we have lost? This rich journey so far in which we have recorded 150 hours of Fall-related chit-chat. That's all it is. Shouting into it.
Of the artist to become chit-chat.
Shouting into an empty internet bucket. Thanks, listeners. It's meta. It's meta. We're not wasting our time. This is meaningful. Anyway, let's take a vote.
On that existential bombshell.
Stepping Out or Jack the Ripper? Alistair?
They're Stepping Out.
You put this as your top. Pip?
I love that solo. As much as I love Stepping Out, I thought that solo is fucking amazing. And I go Jack the Ripper.
And interestingly, you put Jack the Ripper as your top. And I'm Stepping Out is good, but I don't need to hear it anymore. If it's got its charm, it's got its historical importance. But I'm going for Jack the Ripper as well. I'll put it this way: Tim has got 3 for Stepping Out and only 1 for Jack the Ripper. So Ezra, it's all in your hands. What goes through to the second round? Is it
no pressure, Daddy?
Is it the Screaming Lord Such cover, or is it the very first and very, very important first song that the Fall ever recorded in the history of the world?
I'll go with Jack the Ripper. Thanks.
Yay!
And
totally disinterested in both of these tracks.
So not only am I voting out this landmark, I also have no interest in the other song that I'm voting through. And
Yes.
the last few remaining listeners to our podcast are screaming now, and you're wrong, and we're right, listeners. You fucking idiot.
Nothing if not true and utter Philistines.
The end.